the secret to respect: stop being so available. It works fast. Let's begin with something that might seem small at first glance, but I guarantee it's shaping your relationships, your self-worth, and how much respect you get from others: your availability. In a world obsessed with being connected 24/7, we've been conditioned to believe that being constantly available is a sign of love, loyalty, and importance. We reply instantly to texts. We answer calls at midnight. We show up every time someone needs us, even when it costs us sleep, peace, or our own priorities. And we do it because we think it will bring us closer to people, make us more respected, more appreciated, more needed. But what if I told you that the exact opposite is true? What if your constant availability is the very reason people take you for granted? This isn't just a social dynamic, this is a philosophical trap. Because the more you offer yourself without boundaries, the more you dilute your essence. And people intuitively sense that. They may not say it out loud, but it's in their behavior. They cancel plans last minute. They only reach out when they need something. They stop valuing your time. And here's the kicker: they're not doing it to be cruel. They're doing it because you trained them to think your time is cheap. Availability, when it lacks discernment, becomes invisibility.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more topics you love.
Now, let's connect this to something deeper. Why do we make ourselves so available in the first place? On the surface, it looks like kindness, service, or love. But beneath that, it's often fear. Fear of being forgotten. Fear of being replaced. Fear that if we don't constantly show up, we'll lose our place in someone's life. And that fear is what strips us of dignity. We become performers in someone else's story, hoping they'll applaud us for being ever present. But respect doesn't come from being accessible. It comes from being intentional. Have you ever noticed how the people we admire most, leaders, innovators, even spiritual teachers, are never constantly accessible? That's not an accident. It's because their time is sacred, and their energy is guarded, and that scarcity creates value. We want to hear from them because they don't speak all the time, and their presence has gravity because it's not scattered. It's chosen, and that's the secret most people miss. What you protect becomes precious. What you give away freely becomes forgettable. Think about it. If someone texts you and you reply within seconds every single time, what message are you sending? You're signaling that you're always waiting, that you have nothing more important to do, that they are your priority, even when you aren't theirs. And over time, they stop appreciating it. They start expecting it. And the moment you don't reply instantly, they act offended. Why? Because you trained them to believe that your time belongs to them. Now let's flip the script. Imagine being the person who takes time to reply, not out of arrogance, but out of self-respect. Imagine having boundaries that say, I am not always available because I am building something. I am growing. I am living. And that kind of energy shifts everything. It rewires how people treat you. It demands that they rise to your level rather than pulling you down to theirs. And the best part, it's not manipulative. It's authentic. Because in reality, you shouldn't be constantly available. Not if you're truly living with purpose. But here's where the philosophical depth kicks in. The ancient Stoics believed that life is measured not in length, but in quality. Seneca said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." When you give your time to everyone, at every moment, without reflection, you are wasting your most sacred resource, Your time is your life, and when you give it without discernment, you are giving away your life to people who may not even value it. This isn't about becoming cold or distant. It's about becoming intentional. It's about protecting your inner space so that what you give to others is rooted in truth, not fear. And ironically, when you do that, when you set boundaries, when you become less available, you become more respected, not less. Because people start to realize that your presence is a privilege, not a guarantee. So let me ask you a question that could change your social life forever. Are you available because you want to be, or because you're afraid not to be? Are you showing up from power or from insecurity? And what would happen truly? What would shift if you allowed your absence to build curiosity, reverence, even desire? Remember, the sun is not available at midnight. And yet, the world still turns in anticipation of its return. Maybe it's time you started showing up like the sun. The psychology of scarcity, why rarity increases value, and how to use it with integrity. Most people misunderstand the concept of scarcity. They think it's about manipulation, about withholding affection, attention, or time to control others. But true scarcity, the kind that elevates your value, is not about playing games. It's about alignment. It's about living in such a way that your time, your energy, your presence becomes a reflection of depth, not desperation. And the truth is, we only come to value what we believe is rare. That's not cynicism. That's psychology. That's philosophy. That's human nature. Let's look at this through a philosophical lens. Plato spoke of the form, the ideal essence of a thing. He believed everything in the physical world is a shadow of its perfect form. The more accessible the shadow, the more it drifts from its sacred origin. In other words, when something is everywhere, we stop seeing its essence. We see its surface. We get used to it. Familiarity breeds invisibility, and invisibility breeds neglect. So when you are always available, always texting back immediately, always saying yes, always showing up no matter what, you become familiar. And then you become invisible. Now let's merge this with modern psychology. In behavioral economics, there's a principle called the scarcity heuristic. It states that people place a higher value on objects, experiences, or individuals that are perceived as limited in availability. This is why luxury brands don't flood the market. This is why gold is more valuable than iron. It's not always about utility, it's about perception. And when it comes to human relationships, we operate the same way. We chase what we can't easily have. We respect what we can't easily access. And we appreciate what we fear we might lose. So, if you're always available, always open, always present, you are sending a subconscious signal: I am abundant, unlimited, and therefore ordinary. That's a harsh truth, but it's a liberating one. Because it means you can shift how you're perceived, not by pretending to be someone you're not, but by honoring who you truly are. Think about it. If your time is finite, if your energy is sacred, if your attention is precious, why are you giving it away like it's air? Let's take a real-world example. Imagine two people. One is always online, quick to respond, never says no. The other is deeply engaged in their work, selective with their time, focused on their growth. But who do people respect more? Who do they chase? Who do they pause before calling or texting just to make sure it's worth their time? It's the one who values themselves first, not because they're arrogant, but because they're aligned. This isn't about becoming aloof, but It's about becoming finite, and finiteness, when paired with purpose, creates reverence. But you don't need to pretend to be busy. You need to actually be busy living a life that matters to you. When you do that, your unavailability becomes a natural byproduct of your passion. When people feel that, they sense that you're not avoiding them, you're building something. You're becoming someone. And that, more than anything, inspires both curiosity and respect. Here's where integrity comes in. Scarcity works when it's real. If you pretend to be unavailable while secretly refreshing your inbox, people will feel the contradiction. If you play games, withholding just to gain power, you'll attract people who are also playing games. But if you live a life that demands your presence elsewhere, if you're investing in your mind, your craft, your health, your vision, then your absence becomes not a strategy, but a statement: I am becoming more than what you see right now. And that's magnetic. So let me ask you something radical. What would happen if you stopped making yourself so easy to reach, not out of pride, but out of purpose? What if your time became a reflection of your values, not your fears? What if every yes you gave came from a place of alignment, not obligation? Respect isn't something you demand. It's something you embody. And the fastest way to embody it: stop being so available. Let your absence become a teacher. Let your silence plant seeds. Let your boundaries speak louder than your words. The power of no, why refusing others can be the greatest act of self-respect, and how to do it without guilt. There's a moment, subtle, often ignored, that defines the trajectory of your self-worth. It's the moment when someone asks for your time, your energy, your attention, and you feel that hesitation. That quiet voice inside you that says, you need rest, or this doesn't feel right, or not this time. And in that moment, you have two choices: say yes and betray yourself, or say no and honor your truth. That choice, repeated over time, becomes your identity. And too many of us have built identities on the back of self-betrayal. We say yes because we're afraid of being disliked, afraid of seeming selfish, afraid of being misunderstood. But every yes that comes from guilt is a no to your dignity. Every yes that comes from fear is a no to your future. And every yes that comes from the need to be needed is a no to your growth. The power of no is not in its rejection. It's in its protection. It protects your time, your energy, your vision, your peace. And most importantly, it protects your relationship with yourself. Philosophically, we must ask, what is freedom if not the ability to choose? And what is choice if not the ability to say no? If you cannot say no, then you are not free, you are bound by the expectations of others. You are a prisoner with invisible chains, smiling while you sacrifice your soul. But here's the truth most people don't want to face: no one will value your time until you do. People will treat your yes as infinite until you show them that it's not. And the only way to do that is by practicing the sacred art of refusal. When you say no from a place of self-respect, you are not pushing people away, you are teaching them how to love you without consuming you. You are creating space for what truly matters. You are choosing long-term fulfillment over short-term approval. And ironically, the people who truly care about you, who truly see your worth, will respect you more for saying no. Because they'll recognize that your boundaries are not walls, they are invitations to engage with you authentically. But let's talk about the guilt. That creeping sensation that you're letting someone down, that you're being cold. that you owe your time to everyone who asks for it. Here's the truth: guilt is often just an echo of old programming. It's the residue of being taught that love means sacrifice, that goodness means compliance, that your value comes from how much you give. But self-respect rewrites that programming. It replaces guilt with clarity. It says, I am not rejecting you. I am choosing me. And that choice is not selfish, it's sacred. Imagine how your life would change if you only said yes when you meant it. If every commitment was born from alignment, not pressure. If your time was no longer a currency you spent to earn love, but a sacred offering you shared with discernment. That kind of life is rare. That kind of life is respected. So ask yourself, how many of your recent yeses were actually quiet no's you were too afraid to say out loud? And what would shift in your life if you gave yourself permission to say no, not with anger, not with arrogance, but with calm certainty? The respect paradox: how distance, silence, and self-focus make people value you more. Even if they don't realize it, there's a paradox at the center of human connection. The more you chase people, the more they run. The more you explain yourself, the more they stop listening. The more you try to be everything for everyone, the more invisible you become. And yet when you pull back, when you create space, when you focus deeply on your own path, suddenly people start paying attention. They lean in. They ask where you've been. They remember your value. This is the respect paradox. You gain the most respect not by constantly being present, but by being purposefully absent. Let's be clear, this is not about manipulation. This is about energy. Attention is energy. Presence is energy. And when you're constantly giving that energy away, you're teaching others that it's endless. But when you protect it, when your silence becomes intentional, when your distance is purposeful, you shift the dynamic. You remind people that your time is not guaranteed, that your presence is not owed, and that subtle shift changes everything. Philosophically, this reflects a deeper truth: what is rare is revered. We are drawn not to what is in abundance, but to what is elusive. The sun rises and sets. The moon waxes and wanes. Even nature understands the power of rhythm, of presence and absence. So why do we think we must be always on, always responding, always available to everyone, all the time? It's because we're afraid. Afraid that if we disappear, even for a moment, we'll be forgotten. But here's the truth: the right people don't forget. They reflect. And they return often with more appreciation than they had before. When you focus on your own growth, when you dive into your passions, build your discipline, guard your space, you radiate a kind of power that doesn't need to speak. People feel it. They may not understand it consciously, but they sense that something about you has changed. But you're no longer seeking validation, you're rooted in something deeper. And that is the most magnetic force on earth: someone who's not trying to be liked, but is simply being themselves fully. This kind of inner authority doesn't just attract respect, it commands it. Not through force, not through performance, but through presence. A presence that is earned through solitude, silence, reflection, and self-devotion. And suddenly, the same people who once ignored your messages start wondering why they haven't heard from you. The same ones who took you for granted start asking how you've been. Because when you stop broadcasting yourself constantly, your signal becomes stronger. So here's the final question: are you willing to let go of the chase? Are you willing to become so focused on your own becoming that your absence becomes more powerful than your presence ever was? That's the paradox. That's the secret. When you stop being so available, you become unforgettable. Respect doesn't come from being everywhere. It comes from being somewhere fully, deeply, unapologetically. But be there, and let the world come to you on your terms.